We have spent 7 weeks talking about the creation of the heavens and the earth, with the culmination of God's creation being mankind, made in God's image to represent Him on the earth by taking dominion over all things and to spread His glory to the ends of the earth. I want to repeat that because it's very, very important. I want everyone to listen. The culmination of God's creation is mankind, who has been made in His image to represent Him on the earth by taking dominion over all things and to spread His glory to the ends of the earth. But we are not through with the creation narrative. Today we're going to look at day 7, and then next week I will not be here. David Adamson is going to preach for me. The following week will be our science week. Our science and theological questioning things. So you guys will get to ask questions. If you have some, you can write them down in the box because I'm going to prepare some answers for a few things. But we need to deal with this day tonight because day 7 carries so much theological implications for the rest of the Bible. It is so very important that we discuss day 7 of creation because that goes into the rest of the Old Testament and New Testament. So, Genesis chapter 2, I'm going to read the first 3 verses and I want to talk about it. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the 7th day, God finished His work that He had done, and He rested on the 7th day from all of His work that He had done. So God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all His work that He had done in creation. First thing I want you to see is the completion of the universe. Okay? The very first thing it says in verse 1 is that God, that the heavens and the earth, which by the way, if you remember, okay, from Genesis 1:1, where it says heavens and earth, that is a way of saying the entire universe. Okay? So, in chapter 2, God is done creating the universe. Thus, the universe was finished. That's another way to say it. So, heavens and earth were finished, or the universe was finished. Then it says, all the hosts of them. This is just adding to making sure you understand the idea that this includes everything. That's why it says, all the hosts of them. That word host has the idea of the total made up of various parts. So when we say the universe, all right, we are including Earth. We are including our sun, we're including our solar system, we're including our galaxy, we're including all the stars in our galaxy, and we're including all the others of billions of galaxies that exist in the universe. The entire host of the universe is finished. As verse 2 says, finished His work that He had done. Now, I want to say something real quick about naturalism and evolution, contrasting this, okay? Naturalists, and again, let me just define that for you. Naturalism or naturalists believe that there is no supernatural God behind nature. They believe that nature is all that there is. They believe that everything that exists came into existence by chance, given enough time and enough heat and enough perfect situation, that everything exists came to be by chance. It is naturalism at its finest. But here we read that it's called God's work. So the naturalists would say, no, there's nothing. There's no supernatural being behind the cosmos. There's no supernatural God that has done all this. Yet we read in our text, the Bible says, calls this God's work. Look at it. it says that God had finished, verse 2, finished his work. There's a bunch of different words for the word work in the Old Testament. This specific word means skilled labor, work that is performed by a craftsman or artist. Think about it. I was talking to my kids on the way home one day, and I said, isn't it crazy that God made the sun and the moon to look the same size in our sky? Like that alone, isn't that amazing to think about? Because one of them is about 210,000 miles away. The moon is about 210,000 miles away. The sun is 93 million miles away. And yet, with our naked eye, they look the same size. That alone is artistry. That God places these two things in a perfect distance that to us they look the same size. Have you ever just stopped to look at the beautiful artwork that God has made? How incredibly intricate and beautiful and glorious this creation is. It is in fact a wonderful piece of art done by God. This is work that God has done. He has labored over it. He has created it like an artist or a craftsman creates a beautiful piece of art, or Ron Swanson makes a chair.
Amen.
That's what the universe is. It is a work of art created by a master craftsman or artist, not by time and chance and temperature and perfect situation. God is now done with his creation. Second thing I want you to see is found in the second part of verse 2. God rested from his creative work. We are told that after God finishes and completes his creative work, on the seventh day he rested. Look at verse 2. On the seventh day, God, it literally means on the seventh day, having finished his work that he had done, he rested from his work. Now, the word rested here does not mean needing to recuperate after being tired. Okay? So if I go run a mile as fast as I can possibly run it, I'm going to need to rest after I run that mile. Okay? If I haven't died. I am going to need to rest after I run that mile. I am going to be tired and I will need to recuperate. Every single Sunday night and Wednesday night after I preach on Sunday and I preach on Wednesday, I am tired. And that next day, I'm just a little bit droggier. I'm a little bit slower. I'm a little bit, because you've prepared and it's taken this. After parenting children, you have to rest and recuperate from the exhaustion that they cause upon you. That's not what this word rest means. This is not, God is so tired after creating, he's got to take a break and recuperate and get his strength back. The word actually means to cease. Okay? Musicians understand this word. When they are reading a piece of music and they come to a marking that tells them they're supposed to rest for a certain period of time, it does not mean take a break. I know you're tired. That's not what it means. It means to cease from whatever you're playing. So it is the idea of not getting your energy back, but stopping or ceasing. The word also carries with it the idea of enjoying being completed. So in other words, think about God being an artist, right? if someone is an artist and they're working on their canvas and they're painting or they're drawing or they get done with this beautiful piece of art, they're finished and they're complete, there is a sense in which they will step back and they will look at that piece of art and they will get great enjoyment out of it, what it is that they have made. Okay? Listen, I know what this feels like just when I finish a book. My favorite thing about reading a book is finishing it. Now, I love the story and everything in between. I love all that. But I love finishing a book and turning that last page and closing it up. And now I'm done with the work that I was doing, right? And just stop being like, wow, that was great. Enjoying the fact that this thing has happened. Okay, that's what this means. God has created, and now God is done creating, and He is stopping, He is ceasing to enjoy that which He has created. I want to say something scientific here. So, I know that I'm saving most of this for our science days and our theological question days, but I want to say something here because I find this very, very important. Okay? All scientists, whether they are naturalists, whether they believe in God, whether they are born-again Christians, all scientists admit the same thing. That once human beings arrive on the planet, these massive speciation events that have been occurring stop. So before mankind steps on the planet, there are massive speciation events, new species popping up all over the place. As soon as man steps on the planet, those speciation events stop. Now, scientists for a long time, naturalist scientists who didn't believe in God, for a long time didn't think that was the case. They wanted to find more stuff after mankind, but they're not finding anything. These massive speciation events stop once mankind comes on the scene. And the reason why is because God is done creating. When God finishes with the culmination of His creation, man, God ceases from creating new species. Just as it is being described in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. God creates new species, new species, new species. God makes man, speciation events stop. This seventh day, okay, is when God ceases. But I want to talk about this seventh day in a unique way for the rest of our time. I'm going to need you to pay very close attention. Verse 3 says, "So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy." God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. Now, when we think of the word holy, most of the time we think about someone who is morally perfect. Okay? How can a day be morally perfect? It can't be, right? So this can't mean that God blessed the seventh day because the seventh day was morally perfect. It's not what it means. Almost every time the word holy is used, it is used to mean set apart. Okay? Set apart. The word sanctified means that. The word consecrate means that. It's the idea of setting something apart. So here, God says in verse 3 that He blesses the seventh day and He makes it holy. He sets apart the seventh day for something special. Now, this one verse, Genesis 2:3, has massive, massive implications for the rest of humanity, for the rest of all time. Let me explain by giving you three things. Number one, the Sabbath day was set aside, was made holy for Israel to rest, celebrate, and worship. Okay? The Sabbath day was set aside by God for Israel to rest, celebrate, and worship. We see this in the fact that in the Old Testament, when God creates the nation of Israel, in His law, He tells them, you are to work from Sunday to Friday. You can work from Sunday to sundown on Friday. But from sundown on Friday to sundown on Sunday, you are not allowed to work. It is a day that you set aside and you cease from working. Now, this has massive implications as well, but let me just talk at a practical level. We have not been made to go, 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 and not rest. We have been made to thrive in this pattern, okay, of working, resting from our work. Working and resting from our work. Israel, because of this verse, 2:3, Israel is going to rest and celebrate and worship God on their Sabbath from sundown Friday to sundown on Sunday. However, Israel was supposed to also do something else. They were to work the fields for 6 years, and then on the 7th year, they were to let the field rest. They weren't supposed to work the field. You want a practical reason for this as well. Do you know what would happen if they wouldn't produce a crop for a year? All the pests that depended upon the crops to thrive would die off. They didn't have pesticides. They could spray their crops to keep the bugs away. Spray their crops to keep the pests away. But what would happen is when you take a whole year off, it's a way of shrinking down the pest problem. Here's another thing. I'm going to have to explain this, so I need you to think with me. For a Sabbath year, okay, would be the 7th year. Okay, so every 7 years, the 7th year is a Sabbath year. Okay? Let our land rest. However, every 7 Sabbath year, so you're getting the idea of the number 7 here, right? Yeah. The 7th Sabbath year would be what is called a year of Jubilee. So listen to me now. Listen to me. Every 7 days, you have a Sabbath day. Every 7 years, you have a Sabbath week. And then every seven Sabbath years, you have what is called the year of Jubilee. If you were here from Daniel, we talked about this. Here's what would happen on the year of Jubilee. So, if my family got into some kind of situation, financial situation, all right, and I came to Chase and I said, Chase, my family's in a financial situation, we're in trouble, and Chase said, that's fine, I'll take care of it, but you got to pay me back. And I said, well, there's no way I can pay you back right now. Pretend we're in Bible times. There's no way I can pay you back right now. I'm going to make myself a bondservant to you. I am going to come and I'm going to work for you until I pay off my debt. Okay? Or let's say a situation happened where an animal of mine got loose and killed somebody's child. Okay? They would come, the person who lost their child would take my property, and I would have to go and become a bondservant for them and work, all right, to pay off, not like you could actually pay off this debt, but to work because of the life of the child that was taken away. My whole family actually would come over. And so there would be this work that would be done to pay off debt. All right? But every 7th Sabbath year, okay, that 50th year, after you have 7 sevens, 49, that 50th year was a year of Jubilee. All debt was forgiven. Working to pay the debt off would cease. Okay? All of this comes from this idea in 2:3 where God rested. So, resting on a seventh day, okay, comes from the Sabbath. Having a Sabbath year of rest for the land comes from the Sabbath. Having a Sabbath year of Jubilee where after 7 Sabbath years, all debt is forgiven. Anything that you owed, you don't owe it anymore. You don't have to work anymore. All the land that you lost will be given back to you. All of this comes from this idea of Sabbath being set aside for Israel. Number 2, the Sabbath was part of how Israel saw themselves. I'm going to have to explain this as well. This is crazy good stuff. These 3 points are crazy good stuff. The Sabbath was a part of how Israel saw themselves. Okay, you're going to have to pay attention to me. Israel saw their deliverance from Egypt as being shadowed in creation. Okay? Israel was brought out of chaos and the darkness of the pagan world. God brought them into existence as a people. He separated truth from falsehood in the law that He gave. He provides abundantly for them. He commissions them to be His representatives, and He brings them into Sabbath rest in Canaan. Israel looked at creation and said, what God did in creation, He's now doing for us as a nation. He's bringing us out of the darkness of the chaos of slavery, out of the pagan world of Egypt. When they had been enslaved for 400 years, God brings them out. He gives them, He separates truth from error by giving them His law. He provides abundantly for them. He commissions them to be His representative nation. And He brings them into Sabbath rest in Canaan. Now, this is how Israel viewed themselves in light of the Sabbath. However, they never experienced true Sabbath rest in Canaan. Okay, the promised land that they were supposed to get in Canaan, they never experienced the rest that God was going to give them. The reason was because of their disobedience and idolatry. They turned over and over and over again away from worshiping the Lord to worshiping idols. Turn with me to Hebrews chapter 4. I want you to see this as the writer of Hebrews describes in Hebrews chapter 4. The first 6 verses. Listen very carefully. Okay? Read along with me. Therefore, while the promise of entering His rest still stands, let us fear lest any of you should seem to have failed to reach it. For good news came to us just as came to them. Okay, it's talking about this, that Israel was given good news. Israel's the them here. But the message they heard did not benefit them because they were not united by faith with those who listen. For we who have believed enter that rest. As He said, as I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. So God said of Israel, here's how you get in my rest. Obey me. Follow my law. Follow my rules. Unite yourself to me in faith and obey. And Israel did not do it. And God said, because of that, you shall not enter my rest. Verse 4. For He has somewhat spoken of the seventh day in this way. And God rested on the seventh day from all His works. And again in this passage He says, they shall not enter my rest. Since therefore it remains for some to enter it, And those who formerly received the good news failed to enter because of disobedience. Israel never entered into the Sabbath rest of God. They had all these things that God had done for them, but they refused. They disobeyed. They followed after false gods. And so the whole time that they were living in Canaan, they never experienced the rest that they should have experienced because of their disobedience. But then, number 3, and this is very important, the ultimate Sabbath rest is found in Christ. The ultimate Sabbath rest is found in Christ. Look at verse 7 of Hebrews 4. Listen to this. Again, he appoints a certain day. Today. Saying through David so long afterward in the words already quoted, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Listen to this. For if Joshua, who led Israel into the promised land, who was their leader that led Israel into Canaan? It was Joshua. If Joshua had given them rest, God would not have spoken of another day later on. Israel never got rest. They never got rest. The promised land never gave them rest. They couldn't enter into God's rest because of their disobedience and their idolatry. God's nation failed to get God's rest. But God spoke of a day later on. Here's what began to happen. And if you can think back to Daniel with me, okay? Think back to Daniel with me. Here's what began to happen. Prophets in the Old Testament began talking about a day when Sabbath rest would finally come. The prophets in the Old Testament began talking about this day that was going to come, this day that was going to come, where God would finally provide the ultimate rest. And here's what's interesting. If you go back to Daniel, do you remember the 70 times 7? Do you remember that? When we did our Daniel series, we talked about where God was talking about the 70 sevens. All right? Listen. That is the ultimate way of describing the ultimate deliverance. Using 77s is a way of saying ultimate rest. Ultimate rest. Absolute, complete rest. Multiply that together, it's about 490 years, right? Yeah. From the moment, by the way, from the moment it said that until the baptism of Jesus was right at about 490 years, if you remember our series correctly. They begin saying, God is going to come. And when God comes, listen to me, when God comes, God is going to bring rest permanently. And here's what happens. Listen, America, listen, sorry. Jesus comes as God in the flesh. Jesus comes to bring the ultimate rest. Those who are united in faith to Jesus cease from their work of disobedience and enter true spiritual rest. Christian, we entered into true spiritual rest when we were united in faith with Jesus Christ. The work of disobedience has stopped. It has ceased. We are now the Sabbath people of God. We are now the holy and set apart nation of God. Like Israel was supposed to be. That is now us. We are the set aside people, holy for God. All of this language, listen to me, all of this imagery, all of this language The reason why God gave the seventh day, you say, well, God didn't need to stop. I mean, he didn't have to have the seventh day off, right? He could have just stopped on the sixth day and not even talked about a seventh day. Like, just forget it. What does it matter? The seventh day was all about Jesus, guys. God created this seventh day of rest to point to Jesus Christ. It's the whole reason why it's there. It's to point to Jesus. And where the ultimate rest comes from. So, the very beginning of the Bible, okay, we're already pointing to Jesus. We're already pointing to a day when real Sabbath rest comes in Jesus Christ. Now the question is, listen to me. The question is, are we united in faith with the one who gives spiritual rest? That's the question. Are we united with the only one who can give our lives spiritual rest? The way that we do that is we unite in faith. We surrender our lives. We submit to Him as King and Lord and Savior, believing that He died on the cross to save sinners and He rose again to give us life. So that's the ultimate here. Israel failed. Israel failed. So Jesus comes, providing the perfect spiritual rest for all who are united in Him.